The seeking of mood-altering started at 13, maybe 12. You know, I was always in pursuit of how can I feel better. It never occurred to me that I could do that on my own. I thought the only way was through chemicals.
I felt like in many ways I wasn't good enough. I wasn't what my parents wanted. I wasn't what I wanted to be. I felt like I should be more. Well, drugs and alcohol, as soon as they got in my system, they said, well, you are more. You're more. You're just fine.
I just couldn't get out of it. I could promise myself at night when I was feeling really guilty or ashamed, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then hours later, I'd have a drink in my hand and think, why? You know, why? Why can't I do anything about this?
I've been to college. I've got computer training certificates. Cocaine, any drugs, they don't have a preference. They don't say, well, I'm going to get this kid because he lives in the projects, or I'm going to get this guy because he's a doctor. Whoever picks it up stands a chance of becoming extremely addicted.
Change is very scary for an addict, but I'm beginning to not be so afraid of the change and welcome it as a new beginning, where it used to be terrifying.
I'm learning about me. Finding out that I am a special person, that I am worth being clean, I am worth life.
When you look at this person now in front of you, and you learn about what they were like a few months or years previous to that, it is like a biography of two totally different people. And that, to me, is fascinating, that a transformation can occur.
Funding for this series is provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, making grants to improve the health and health care of all Americans. And by Mutual of America, building America's future through pension and retirement plans, encouraging dialogue and discussion. The spirit of America, Mutual of America.
I'm Bill Moyers. Just about all of us have a hard time changing things we don't like about ourselves. Alcoholics and addicts have it even harder. Their bodies have been so altered by prolonged use of chemicals, they hunger to keep using, despite the life-threatening consequences. When you realize just how powerful addiction can be, you're tempted to think it's a miracle anyone can break its grip. Yet many people do, some of them on their own. For others, treatment makes all the difference. Studies show that people treated for addiction have a rate of improvement that compares favorably to other chronic diseases, such as diabetes and hypertension. Still, it's an uphill battle, and as our oldest son discovered, no one treatment works for everyone. The road to recovery differs from person to person. Whatever their way back, the people who make it have not just repaired their lives, they've made a transformation. We'll visit some places tonight that have worked hard to discover how best to help people who are addicted. They would agree with the ancient Greek playwright who said, "There is in the worst of fortune the best chances for a happy change."
For all of you looking for a higher power, Rosemary's Mine. Old woman of many years, please sit down next to me. I want to know what life is all about, how it's supposed to be.
Every May they come back with friends and family for a reunion. From many different walks of life, what they have in common is addiction. In my quest for a deeper understanding of addiction and recovery, I came to this treatment center near Atlanta to talk to these people about their lives and their journeys away from addiction.
I began as a social drinker. It escalates slowly. I couldn't tell you the point at which I slipped from being a heavy drinker to an alcoholic. All I can tell you is I knew it happened. If you have to go to a party and your wife has to tell you, don't drink too much, and you do anyway, there's a problem. If you promise faithfully, it's all right, I'm not going to drink too much. You know, I'll be the one that drives home, and it never happens. Then you might have a problem with that. I mean, if you keep banging your head against a brick wall, it's great when it stops, but with alcoholism or drug addiction, you can't stop. And then suddenly you realize this nightmare is true. I can't stop.
I was smoking pot from about age 18, and then later I started using Demerol.
Demerol?
Demerol.
How did you get it?
Here's the word, diverted it from the hospital.
Well, you work in a hospital?
Yes, sir. I'm a registered nurse, and I'd drawn some boundaries in my mind where I wouldn't take it from the patients that it was prescribed for. I would take their leftovers.
Started out with Furacet, which is a barbiturate. Furacet.
Haven't heard of that.
They prescribe it for migraine headaches. And I had migraine headaches, so I started taking it. And I first started taking it with prescriptions from physicians, and then started taking it off the shelf.
How did you get it?
I worked in a pharmacy.
You're a pharmacist?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you could help yourself to it.
Yeah, it's a little candy store.
It can happen to anyone. It happens to anyone. In my mind, the picture of an addict was a man who hadn't bathed, with shaggy hair and dirty clothes, with a needle hanging out of his arm. Not Chick Williams in a white nursing uniform at a nice hospital.
The Ridgeview Institute is a private medical facility specializing in the treatment of addiction. When you come here, one of the first things you learn is that addiction is a disease, something many people still have a hard time accepting.
Well, the problem I think that people have with seeing it as a disease is that it has so many different facets, and it confuses those who observe it.
An MD by training, Paul Early is Ridgeview's medical director.
And a family therapist sees the family problems, and a biochemical person sees the biochemical problems, and a sociologist sees the crime, and no one's seeing the thing at the center.
What is the thing at the center?
The thing at the center is a compulsion which slowly eats away at the person, consuming a larger and larger parts of its thought. It's an obsession of the mind, and that obsession takes over everything around that person.
It was like being in prison for me, because the obsession to use was so strong in my life that once I was in the full, what I'd like to say, the toxic state, my daily regime was that I was drug seeking. I had to, and by that time my body was already had signs of withdrawal, so I needed to repeat that charade constantly. I had no choice.
It took more and more and more just to feel okay. I never could quite get back to where I was feeling excited anymore.
And I started drinking too. On top of all that, because those medications wouldn't numb my fear of being addicted, and knowing I was, but I didn't want to see it, I started drinking on top of that.
Denial is a very powerful thing, because denial means that you are the last person to know that you have a problem, because you deny it. I can control it, I can do this, and you can't.
Denial means an unconscious mechanism which distorts that person's understanding of what's happening to them, and they can't see it. And some people say, I just wanted to go up and shake them and say, don't you see what you're doing? And that wouldn't do any good either. That's the tragedy.
And why is that? Because the drug itself has so affected the processes of the brain?
It has affected it. Addiction gets its tendrils in the part of our brain that is much deeper than reason. It is in the survival part of the brain. And so what we try to do is use this thinking part of our brain that's saying, oh my, maybe I shouldn't do this. And meanwhile, this driven, instinctual part says, I will. And that thinking part on the top says, maybe you ought not. The just say no part of the brain on the top says, oh, well, just say no. And that basic primitive drive says, the heck with that, just say no, I'm gonna do it.
My addiction, for me, took me so low that I wanted someone to get me. I wanted someone to say, stop, you need help, because I couldn't do it. I was powerless over it.
I knew I had to do something because, well, I guess I knew I was going to get fired or I was going to lose my license.
I wanted some help and I wanted to change. Something had to be different.
You don't have to lose everything to hit bottom. You just have to get to the emotional state where you can't cope with anything.
And that happened to you?
Yeah.
And you came here?
I volunteered to come here. I turned myself in.
Don came to Ridgeview as a patient. I came here some years ago as a father. Our oldest son had relapsed on drugs and alcohol and entered Ridgeview fighting to survive. Like my son, the changes Don made here saved his life.
When I came into treatment, the first thing I was told by Paul was, you have to surrender. I said, surrender? I want to fight this disease. And he said, if you get beaten up by Muhammad Ali 18 times, are you going to get back in the ring with him and fight him again? No, you're not. You're going to surrender.
Surrender?
Surrender. That means admit to yourself, not to anyone else, to yourself, I am powerless over this thing.
But what does that mean?
It means there's nothing I can do alone to beat this. It means I've got to accept, and for an alcoholic or addict it's difficult, that I need someone else and some other things to help me.
When you get here, it's like a cocoon, the outside world left behind. Under medical supervision, you must first get out of your system the stuff that got you here.
You have to go through the pain, and the pain is the withdrawal, the physical effects of not having a drug or alcohol. And that takes, it's not too long. The physical craving, the need to drink disappears, in my case, in about 30 days.
We have them in a setting where there are no chemicals and where we try to specifically pay attention not only to the chemicals but also the other behaviors involved in the addiction, and we try to stop them for a moment. Now that doesn't do anything towards long-term change. All it does is set the stage. When someone comes into me, I like to think of them as a puzzle. They arrive at the door and they've got, on the surface, they've got their addiction behavior, which is very, by the way, very stereotypic, because alcoholics, when they're drinking, they do the same nutty stuff. And then as they begin to stop drinking, all of a sudden you realize there's a series of psychological linchpins that need to be pulled for that person to kind of shift into recovery. And my job as a therapist and as a program director is to figure out how we can start pulling the right linchpins that make the changes occur.
You getting ready to work? Are you an addict?
I'm an addict and an alcoholic. And cravings, not recently, but you know what I've learned is that, like you said, when I'm stressed, for me, that's usually when I'm easing into my depression or I'm in it. I don't handle stress very well at all.
At Ridgeview, group therapy is a critical tool for maintaining sobriety and supporting the process of change.
And the other thing I noticed is how direct you were able to see what your emotions are and experience.
With the help of a skilled counselor like Richard Morgan, they confront the problems that underlie their addictions.
I'm sad. I'm moving all my stuff out of my girlfriend's house today. That's what's making me sad.
What's the issue?
Being alone.
Yeah, mine too.
That felt right.
Yep.
So it's not so much the sad, it's the alone.
Right.
When we develop an addiction illness, we become actors, and we become exquisite actors. And we can act in a certain way and fool any one given person almost all of the time. But if I take that one person and put them in group, that group will be able to ferret out that there's a problem there. And I don't know why that is. It's the power of unmasking that that group has.
Well, understanding isn't so much your issue now then.
Right, I want to get out of this.
I want to get out of it.
And I
Well, you want to get into another one?
this feeling of just, I had a conversation with her last night on the telephone, and she was telling me that
For Chick to recover, it is critical that he see the destructive nature of the relationship he's in.
Because I'm watching someone still under the influence doing their deal here. And, you know, you're still having a conversation. You're still trying, no, but this is what I hear. I hear you trying to get her to feel a certain way and her trying to get you to feel a certain way so that then you can both be comfortable and stop doing what you're doing. I mean, you need to close that door. You need to end it. You consumed with it.
In my heart, I know it's over, but that's what I'm saying, as I keep wanting to go back.
But in your body, you're still doing it. You're in the relationship.
Damn.
And I have a real question myself, and have, on whether you can chemically stay sober for much longer than 90 days if you keep playing around in this relationship.
One of the sayings around here is, the group will not lie to you. And if you've got 15 people telling you, Chick, can you see this? You might want to listen to them. I decide to listen to them.
So someone like Chick coming into treatment, as he begins to peel the layers of the lies off of himself, the denial begins to drift away, and he sees himself for what he truly is. And it's that kind of self-knowledge that is critical for people to be in recovery. You know, a lot of us go through life and fool ourselves and fool others about things. We try to be one way we're not a little bit. And that's okay if you don't have an addiction. The problem is if you've got an addiction, that is a fatal problem. It's not just a problem, it is a fatal problem.
It's a life and death struggle, an ordeal no outsider can ever fully appreciate. Over 14 million Americans grapple with addiction, often in secret. Only 20% of them receive any kind of treatment. You're grateful when one who does is someone you love.
It's remarkable that we have people who are college professors, CEOs of major companies, people that are obviously brilliant, and yet, when it comes to their own addiction, they're blind. And it's not.
Pat Owen is the director of research at Hazelden, a pioneering treatment facility in Minnesota. What do you think when you see these people the first time? How do they seem to you?
Typically, I'm mixed with a feeling of despair and hope. It's an odd mixture because you don't know who's going to be able to make it and who isn't. We do not know that yet. It's a huge limitation in our science or in our treatment. And you see people, when they get here, being really at a crossroads. For many of them, you truly do know that if they go out and use again, that they may die. It's not an exaggeration. That's not a hysterical conclusion that we try to scare people with. You just know that this may be the last chance for somebody. So it's a frightening thing to see that. On the other hand, it's very easy to pick up bits of resiliency, bits of potential that you just know will make it possible for this person to recover.
Do you think it's important to think of addiction as a disease?
Yes, I do. When I first came into this field and heard people refer to it as a disease, I thought, well, that's kind of a cute euphemism. Maybe that's just Minnesota nice or something. You know, makes people feel better, you know. And so I was tolerant of the notion, but it didn't sit right with me. As time has gone on, though, I've become fully convinced that it truly is a disease.
What about people who think of it as a moral failing?
We see people here who themselves, who are addicts or alcoholics, who also have a moral view of the disease, who come into treatment saying, I am a terrible, horrible person. I have defied God and everybody around me by becoming an addict. I don't even deserve to live. And we say, whoa, wait a minute. Let's learn a little bit about what the disease is. Because as we know, nobody that I've ever met has intentionally become an alcoholic or addict.
In the treatment of addiction, something unusual is happening in the small city of Rockford, Illinois. They are rehearsing to celebrate the biggest change of their lives. None of these women expected to become addicted. And when that happened, none expected they would one day be liberated from it. Today, they graduate from an innovative treatment program called Project SAFE. Funded by the state of Illinois, Project SAFE reaches out to addicted mothers and to their children who are at great risk for becoming addicted themselves.
Today, my life is very happy, peaceful, joyful, without the use of drugs. I have the tools that I need to fight this disease head on, one day at a time. I truly believe that
this is a big moment for the graduates and for their families and friends who have come to support the changes they have made and the changes yet to come.
Hi, I'm LaShonda. I'm an addict. They always ask me what I was grateful for. I always said nothing. I'm not grateful for anything, but I am grateful. I'm grateful for Mimi, the outreach workers, my PO for showing up when my family didn't show.
It's okay, we're here. You look beautiful.
And the new friends I met, best friends I ever had, they clean.
Project SAFE reaches out to people who are not likely to get help on their own. This approach grew out of research by people like Bill White, who has made the study of treatment his life's work.
When I began to evaluate this project in 1986, what I'm expecting is what I always expected. I'm waiting for a crisis. The classic hit bottom, pain, and then out of that came this opportunity for change. We didn't have that in Project SAFE. We just didn't have it. I had outreach workers telling me, Bill, you don't understand. My clients don't hit bottom, they live on the bottom. And what they said is if we wait for them to hit bottom, they will die. And they said the issue is not an absence of pain in their life. They got more pain than most of us can even comprehend. The issue is an absence of hope.
I want to encourage you
Be encouraged. I don't care how hard things get. I don't care what anyone says.
Maya Hennessy, along with Bill White, played a key role in developing Project SAFE. Working for the state, she looked at the barriers that kept women from treatment.
Probably in the 70s was when we began to look at the need for some changes in treatment if it was going to be more sensitive to the needs of women, which includes looking at her kids, the relationships, all the relationships in her life, high percentage of sexual assault and domestic violence that women are dealing with. We would say things to a woman like, well, you know, after you're straight a year or so, you can deal with those things. For some women, there was no hope of getting a whole year of recovery if we didn't begin to deal with them.
And you can do anything. There's nothing that you cannot do. Don't pick up. I don't care what it is. Do not pick up. Don't let anybody talk you into anything, going anywhere that you know you don't have no business going.
Many of the women are coming from absolutely drug-saturated environments. So the question, obviously, is how did these women get started in treatment? A woman said to me, do you really want to know? And I said, yeah, how did you get to treatment the first time? And she said, it was that woman. I couldn't get rid of her. And she was talking about an outreach worker who came out and began knocking on her door and just kept coming back and just kept coming back. And what they did, they didn't bring a message about pain. They just kept saying it can be different. It can be different. You can do it. They slowly began to build a relationship and penetrate all that distrust and all that fear, and out of that relationship came some sparks that said maybe it can be different.
We first came to Project SAFE 3 months before graduation and met up with Denise Johnson, an outreach worker.
As a matter of fact, the day I started, they had a graduation. And that just blew me away. I cried. I didn't even know these girls. I had never seen these girls before in my life, and I'm sitting there and I'm just crying, and it's like, oh my God, this is what this. That just took me away. Then it was like, oh, okay, this is where I need to be. On a typical day, I drive about 100 miles a day. That can consist of transporting, bringing the women into group, taking them home visits, if they got to go to court, if they got a doctor's appointment, you know. Sometimes they have like 3 appointments set up, you know, all in one day, so we're bouncing all over Rockford.
The women that come into Project SAFE are women who are involved in the child welfare system. So there's been a report or suspect of either abuse or neglect with their children. Child welfare refers the woman to substance abuse treatment, and then the outreach workers go and find this woman and encourage her to come into treatment. And these are individuals that will tell you over and over, I never would have gone to treatment on my own.
I'll be back, definitely. She know I'll be back. She's not ready, so we got to come back and get her.
Denise's next stop was a homeless shelter.
Hi, I'm here for Beverly. It's Denise.
Here she comes.
So by getting these women, the outreach workers befriend them and tell them, I know you've got a lot of problems. I know there's a lot of barriers. Let us help you. They encourage them to come into treatment. When they come into treatment, they meet all these other women also been involved with child welfare.
Oh, 6 of us there.
And as a result of meeting other women in the same boat, they begin to get little ideas of things that can change for them. You were able to get out of an abusive relationship. Maybe I can too. You were able to find a job. Maybe I can too. When they step into a program like Project SAFE, they begin to step into a complete community of people who are in recovery.
It's like an extended family. Someone helps with the kids while mom is in treatment. There's fellowship over a hot breakfast and the beginnings of friendship. For 3 mornings a week, this environment is a safe haven, a refuge, a place to begin rebuilding a life.
When I first came into the SAFE program, I was here because I got busted selling crack cocaine. My house was raided. At that point, I could have had my children taken, but I think by the grace of God, I didn't. I was put on probation, which meant I had to go into a treatment program. It was a treatment program, it was to do my time, which I was given, could have gotten 3 to 7 years in the penitentiary. So I decided, yeah, well, fine, I'm gonna go into a recovery program. This is what the state wants, you know. It's not what I wanted. But once I entered the program, I got to seeing other people, and I got to listening to other stories. And a lot of them are much, much worse than mine. I started thinking, you know, I'm lucky.
What we're going to work on today is feelings. I think that when I said, oh, the topic today is feelings, everybody went, oh, no, okay? But I think that it's significant for us in recovery to get to know who we are. What do we have feelings about?
Everything.
What's everything?
Everything.
Okay.
From a dog to an earring.
From a, how did you say that? From a what?
From a dog to an earring.
Okay, okay. Let's talk about that, okay? The earring could be, okay?
Something that your mother gave you, something precious.
Okay, something precious, okay? So we have feelings about a situation.
What starts out as a room full of strangers evolves over time. The group leader encourages these women to help one another. Mimi Bazine has been a drug and alcohol counselor for 14 years.
About coming in here, okay, to treatment. Okay. I remember the first day we all came in together, and there was a couple people, okay, that were talking, and I said...
Most of them come to us and they're very isolated. They don't share with anyone.
Well, I felt this way.
So many of them come in very angry and have to work through that anger and know they have to come to acceptance of their feelings and acceptance of their choices and that they've made them, and to take responsibility for those feelings and the actions in their own recovery. It's an incredible amount of work.
And we're going to go around, okay, and I want you to tell me one feeling that you have right now.
Satisfied.
Satisfied, all right. Good.
Frustrated.
Frustrated? Okay.
Feel a happy feeling and a lonely feeling.
Sure.
I mean, all at the same time.
Sure.
But it's so confusing.
It is.
I mean, and I've been feeling like that since the other day when I got home. This is my second time around due to the fact that I relapsed last year. My relapse, the reason for me, I think, is to show me that I didn't work it right the first time. You know, learning how to deal with issues that I couldn't deal with before. They taught me to understand my feelings, you know, and that it's okay to have them.
Now, what do chemically dependent people do with their feelings?
Stuff them, suppress them.
What does stuff mean?
Don't talk about them.
Okay. Is it okay to feel anything you want? What do you think?
It is.
Sure it is. So is it okay for me to be angry?
Yes.
One way or another, you deal with your feelings, and these women come in and have dealt with them and tried to medicate their feelings by using. They don't understand that when they first come to us, and I think that it's a significant part of recovery to be able to know that everything you feel is a part of you.
Feel lonely.
Feel lonely?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Lonely.
I can see it.
Okay. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. Anything particular that you feel lonely about?
Yeah, my significant other.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Jen.
So what do you do when you feel lonely?
Cry.
Okay, and that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, because that can be a healthy part of it. Doesn't mean it's fun. Okay, it might be uncomfortable for you, but that's healthier than doing what else? Taking a walk on the wild side, right? Okay. Okay. So when you get lonely, we need to make a plan for you before you go today. Okay?
Studies show that there is healing in talking. We know that if a person tells their story, whether that be something they're ashamed of that they did or some heartache that they've experienced, it diminishes as they keep sharing it. So it may be to somebody who doesn't understand, they'll hear a woman sharing the same thing over and over again, like, you know, I'm in this abusive relationship and I'm not going to take it anymore. And we could hear her say that 4 or 5 times. Well, if you don't understand it, you might think she keeps saying that but not making any changes. But the staff that work in Project Safe know that she may say that many, many times, and each of those times is bringing her closer to the strength to do something about it.
We'll talk for a few more minutes today, and I'd like you to share how much clean time you have, because that's a victory, too. Okay? Okay? You know?
Today I have 29 days clean.
All right. Good job, Felicia. Bev, will you share that with us?
I have 64 days clean.
Get over here.
Good job. Okay? Okay.
A week short of 2 months.
2 months. Proud of your timing. Yeah.
Today.
Today? That's okay.
All right.
That's special for today. I'm proud of you. We'll talk. Okay?
I know.
When a person like Lisa does let us know or says that she relapsed, we have to kind of like keep an eye on them. You know, we have to constantly do home visits on them, making sure that, you know, they're not still using, you know, but as we're talking to them, we're not, you know, beating them down. You know, we're talking to them in a loving, caring way that, you know, we're here to support you. You know, we're here to help you. You know, you don't have to do this by yourself, you know, and if there's any other help that you need, we can help you with it.
See, traditionally what we would do, and I know it sounds pretty irrational, but we would say, if you're coming into treatment, what we're asking you to do is to give up the primary symptom of what we called your disease. And if you exhibit that symptom, then we're going to throw you out of treatment. Now, what I'm suggesting with these women is if we would have taken that traditional approach, the vast majority of these women would have been discharged from treatment in the first 7 to 10 days of treatment. So we had to rethink what's the process through which people go. We found that they wanted to keep coming to treatment and they wanted to keep using cocaine. We found that they would come into treatment one afternoon, blow up in a group and shout profanities at everybody, storm out of the place, and call back 2 hours later wanting to make sure it was still okay to come back to group tomorrow. And what it meant is we're not going to have conversions here. We're going to have destructive and healthy, very fragile, healthy behaviors existing side by side. And our only goal is each day we got to get this one weaker, and each day we got to get this one stronger. What you're looking for is really a synergy going on, this sort of chemistry between people to do together what they haven't been able to do by themselves.
Is there one more seat back there? We are 4 voices, we are singing. We are 4 voices, we are singing. We are not alone.
See you guys Friday.
What happens in treatment is it makes it possible for a person to change. It creates the environment and the education and the fellowship in order for change to happen. They find out they're not alone. They find out that they're accepted for who they are, that they don't have to pretend that there's somebody else. They don't have to use chemicals or drugs or alcohol to be accepted.
Is your goal abstinence?
Absolutely. That's an assumption. We also know that not everybody is going to be able to maintain total abstinence all the time. It's a nature of the disease, really, is that there will be relapses. However, we do expect that a person will get the education and experience to know, first of all, how to anticipate a relapse and to do what they need to do in order to prevent that relapse. But if that doesn't work, if they've experienced a slip, or a relapse, to be able to get back on track relatively quickly, so it doesn't have to spiral into total despair and chaos again.
Avoiding relapse is something every recovering person must learn to do. Home alone is often the toughest place to do it.
I think relapse is always an issue for somebody like me. And for me to not think of it that way is dangerous. You know, I have the disease of compulsion, you know, and if I'm angry, relapse is possible. If I'm hungry, relapse is possible. If I'm tired, relapse is possible.
Donna struggled with a narcotic and alcohol addiction for almost 20 years.
What I suffer from is a soul sickness, you know, a deficit inside. The seeking of mood altering started at 13, maybe 12. You know, I was always in pursuit of how can I change? How can I feel better? You know, how can I fit in? I just thought that was the way to live. You know, it never occurred to me that there was another way.
2.5 years ago, when she found herself in serious trouble, she discovered that her company had a program to help. The major airline she works for as a flight attendant paid for her treatment.
Their response to me was, when I called and told them I wouldn't be back to work for a while, was, thank God. Thank God. We liked you. We like you. We've known there's something wrong. We just didn't know what. Because when you're here, you do a good job. You're having a problem getting here. So this makes perfect sense. And she said to me, do you realize that this is your life? Do you, and I was crying, and I said, but what about my job? What about my job? And she said, this is your life. You need to save your life. And there again was that concept of, oh my gosh, this is much bigger than I even imagined. I feel sick, feel nauseated. This feels too much, you know. Sometimes if I'm feeling I get sick to my stomach. It just feels too much.
One of the things you can do with that, yeah, that's one of the things, yeah, right there, is you can also be aware of moving that out a little bit, emotionally moving it out towards...
Many people who are addicted are very hurt.
Checking out. I'm hearing you, but I'm...
Which I translate, let's not work on that, Richard.
Especially the people that were hurt early in their lives are very cautious. And part of treatment is not to strip away all those defenses, but to strip away enough so that one can look inside. And if you don't strip away enough to do that, you have someone who will inevitably relapse.
I've been here before.
Do you know of any way you can be with the feel sick that can kind of grow you forward a little bit with it?
I don't know, you know, my body's just clenched. And I don't like the spot right now.
Are you willing to let him guide your process here?
50-50.
Okay, because I don't think anybody expects you to know how to do this.
They don't probably, but I do.
No.
It's me. I know that.
Okay, are you willing to let him guide your process?
Sort of.
Then let's just do sort of.
Okay.
Let's do 50-50. Is that all right?
Okay. What I was feeling in the group was a little bit of a fear that I tend to, if I'm going to work, it goes like it did really fast. And it's been a while since I've had that kind of overt expression. And I let myself go with that today.
Do you feel that resistance to working on it or not know what it is?
Just scared.
Scared, okay. That feels to me like a good place to be, is the scared place. Are you aware of that scared place?
I wish...
You keep, yeah.
The problem with therapy is therapy can wind up healing, but along the way in therapy there is always pain. And if the pain causes a return to the drug use, it is of zero benefit. So you cannot push that person to go so deep into the pain that they wind up returning to drug use. Yet, if you ignore it, then you still have a pained individual who was hurt. So what I spend my time late at night worrying about with people like Donna is, should we be doing this therapy now in order to make sure that she stays sober, or should we wait?
The voice of my truth is about sexual abuse. I just don't want to listen to it because I just don't believe it. I can't believe it. It's just, it happens so fast for me sometimes. It just, I walk in and I wear the face of the world and everybody thinks I'm okay a lot of times, and I'm not. And I shift so fast.
Sex abuse history does that. Pow! But what I noticed is you have a lot of ability to recognize that process, be clear, pull back as much as you need to, and come on back in, and know what you need to work on next. Am I?
Oh, yeah.
I do work at it. I don't want to die. I mean, that's how I see it. I mean, it is how I see it, because I was told that this is a fatal and progressive illness, and if it isn't treated, whether that's medically in an inpatient setting or on a individually and using the tools that were suggested to me, I know that pain will swallow me. And I know that, and I'll go back to using, and then I don't have a stop button. I'm not one of those lucky people in life that can have one. And I will go back to that life.
People in recovery say sometimes to me, they say, well, being in recovery is a little bit like having a bowling ball suspended over my head. It's kind of like you're always walking around saying, boy, that's really gonna hurt if it goes. So I have to be real careful. So I've always got my eyes up waiting for that bowling ball to fall. You have to encourage them to explore new avenues and find out more about themselves. And to do that and not relapse, that's the trick.
Some physicians, and you are a physician, some physicians have said to me that it's very frustrating working with addicts because, well, the disease is so tenacious and they just often don't get better very fast. Do you find it frustrating?
Yes, treating addiction is frustrating. It is a combination of frustrating and heartbreaking. The number of my patients that I treat and relapse and some die you take to bed at night, and when you can't sleep, they move around in your head. So yeah, it's hard.
What brought you to this work?
I came to this work because of my own addiction and recovery. I was so hopelessly trapped, and that's the part that I think I can see in patients that sometimes they can't even see. I can see because I have had enough distance from it, and I remember what it felt like to be trapped.
To escape addiction's grip requires an enormous amount of time and patience. Not everyone relapses, but when it happens, the important thing we learned is not to give up.
It is a fact, it's a law. People who stay in treatment longer do better. And I don't care what modality it's in, whether it's inpatient or outpatient or methadone maintenance or on a patch for nicotine or nicotine gum, whatever. People who stay in this longer do better.
Tom McClellan is a researcher at the University of Pennsylvania. He has studied treatment outcomes for 25 years. 25 years of looking at this, are you more or less hopeful than you were a quarter of a century ago about our ability to confront addiction and to change people?
Oh my God, this is the best of times. Tremendous strides have been made at every level. Understanding the genetics of these disorders, which are going to lead to treatment options. Understanding the brain chemistry, which is going to lead to new treatment options. Understanding behavioral change, learning, conditioning, social supports for change. We know more than we ever knew.
When I listen to you, McClellan, you make me feel hopeful about this. Yet I know from personal experience it is difficult. It is one of the hardest diseases of all to conquer. When the person I love and care about came out of 28-day treatment, I was scared. I wanted him to stay there because he was safe while he was there. And sure enough, over the next few years, he relapsed twice.
Yeah. Yep.
It's hard.
It's very hard. A person who has become committed to change and who's gone through some period of initial stabilization, detoxification, even some extended rehabilitation, they come out of treatment and they are truly changed. They are physiologically different people. They've learned lessons. They've established relationships. They've learned some things about themselves. They feel optimistic, but at the same time, they feel scared too. They leave that warm relationship, and now they're back out into the same stressors, the same cues, the same environment that was associated, and the same emotional problems that led to the problems in the first place. That's when they need a family. That's when they need continuing support from the recovering community. That's when they need friends that will support them in that continuing effort, in the behavioral change. It's the toughest part of the treatment, and it's the least supported.
I've been clean now for 7 years and 8 months, and I can, as I'm talking now, it's like I can remember all that like it was yesterday. And I tell the girls all the time that if you forget your last time, then you're going to use again. And they look at me like, you know, how could you say something like that? I said, you'll find out why. You know, I said, just try not to forget. Remember it like it happened just a few minutes ago, and keep that feeling, you know, that last time, you know, when you felt like crap, when you smelled like crap, when you were crying and you were angry and you had did whatever it was to do to get that last time, that you were so sick and tired, and how much pain and how much anger that you felt, you know, remember that. I said, because I'm telling you, that's what's going to save your life.
Project SAFE's extended family tries to fill in when a woman's own family and friends cannot. Sometimes a home visit can make the difference at a critical moment. Denise came to see Felicia because she sensed this might be one of those times. A single mother with 2 school-age boys, Felicia's having a hard time making ends meet. At 30 days sober, she's at high risk for relapse.
And I'm trying to deal with the physical part along with the emotional part. And then I got all this outside stuff. You know, it's right here. It's across the street, it's down the street, it's over that side of the street, you know. And some days, you know, it's not that I feel like they're using things, but it's just the fact that I know it's there. Right. You know what I'm saying? That I know, you know, all I do is walk across the street and get me a bag.
We often think of addiction as a relationship between a drug and a person, and we often forget that there's an entire elaborate social world that surrounds that person-drug relationship. I've committed myself to recovery, but the issue is, now what do I do? It's Saturday morning, I just got home from treatment. Every relationship, every place, everything, every word out of my mouth in my home community ties me to relapse in that addiction lifestyle. I got to replace not only the hole inside myself that drug filled, but an entire social world I got to rebuild.
I feel like if I just give that one moment, that just relax and let my, you know, just let myself go. And I can't do that. I can't do that, and I know I can't do that, and it frustrates the hell out of me because I get tired of being on guard all the time. You know, I'm sick of being on sentry duty. You know,
I first met Felicia when I became her outreach worker. And the relationship we have now is more like a sister now, because I know her. She knows me, and I know her. And she knows that I'm not going to take any crap from her. You know, I'm not going to take any lies. I'm not going to take any of the roles that she's, you know, tried to play on me. That anytime that she wants to close me out, that I'm not going to allow her to close me out. I'm going to say something that's going to bring out whatever it is that's bothering her, you know.
When you were just saying about how, you know, you get tired of being on guard all the time, you know, and, you know, I still today, you know, go feel that, you know, and I don't know if I don't know, and I guess it's not for us to know that it ever go away, you know. It's just something about.
For a lot of them, they used for so long and lived that lifestyle for so long that changes everything. It's your attitude, your actions, your emotions, the way you dress, the way you walk, the way you talk, everything, you know, it has to change.
My babies are suffering. I don't know what to do.
You're doing the best you can do right now, babe. You're doing the best that you can do. And I know you would, you know, love for things to get better, but, you know, we got to remember, you know, how long we were out there doing what we were doing, and that it didn't happen overnight. You know, and that getting better is that's for us, it's a lifelong thing.
Oh, God, and if it takes me so long to get over this, as it did for as many years as I was doing it, boy, I tell you.
Like what, I got 7 years, 8 months now. And when you get through all of it to the end, it's like, hey, I made it through.
A lot of them will say, well, I want to be like you. And I asked them, I said, what do you mean by that? You know, well, I want to be, you know, you got so many years clean, you know, you got a good job, you got a house, you know, you got a car, you know, you always seem happy, you know, it's just, you know, you dress nice, you know, I mean, it's just things that I see in you that I like, you know, and I want it, you know, and the first thing I tell them, I said, well, you know, the only way you can get this is you got to go to meetings, you know, and they look at them like, oh, there you go. I said, I'm not playing. I said, this is not, you know, a joke. This is reality. If you want what I have, you have to go to meetings to get it.
Most treatment centers and counselors urge recovering people to attend meetings at organizations like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Nobody knows the millions of us who are in recovery because we don't let it be known.
You've referred several times to those of us in recovery. You're in recovery?
Yes.
How long have you been?
It'll be 25 years the end of July.
25 years?
Yes.
Do you go to AA meetings?
Yeah, that's been a very, very important part of my recovery.
What do they do for you?
There's all these people there, and they have for as many millions of people there in recovery, there are totally different stories, but there's always somebody who shares something that gives some solution or meaning or hope to whatever I'm struggling with at the given moment.
Many people who never go to treatment find their way to AA, Narcotics Anonymous, or Cocaine Anonymous. With no dues or fees, these organizations are the most accessible form of treatment around. Across the country, throughout each day, people meet and speak frankly about their efforts to stay sober.
They have a chance to disclose things about themselves or to state intentions about themselves that perhaps before they've only mulled around in their head and kept it secret. And so by getting that out in the open, somehow that creates a clearing for more change.
Live and let live, but for the grace of God. First things first. These bits of folk wisdom have been collected by AA over the years. They are reminders that change is a journey of many small steps, repeated every day.
I don't care if you stay in an inpatient treatment for a day or a year. It won't be enough. It's not like learning a lesson. You must practice the behavioral changes that you learn in an inpatient program and keep them up and sustain them after you leave.
You found that groups like AA do encourage change.
Absolutely.
Go into a group just talking about it?
Over and over and over, every study that looks at this finds that participation in these self-help groups is quite consistent with maintained change.
Keep coming back is perhaps AA's most important slogan. Many people swear by this advice.
My sponsor once told me I was going through it. It was about a year, and I said, why me? Why do I have to be an alcoholic? Why do I have to go to meetings? And he looked me right in the face and he said, what's so special about you that it should be why not? Why not you? It can happen to 1 in 10 people. You're one of the lucky ones. You're here.
I am one voice and I am singing. I am one voice and I am singing. I am one voice and I am singing. I am not alone. We are two voices, we are singing. We are two voices, we are singing. We are two voices, we are singing. We are not alone.
Over the course of months, they've been coming back again and again, growing stronger in each other's company. Whatever it is they find together, they must be able to take it away when the circle is broken.
We are 9 voices, we are singing. We are 9 voices, we are singing. We are 9 voices, we are singing. We are not alone.
All right. Amen. Self-love. I woke up this morning and I had a hard time for a while. Then I realized it was because I wasn't liking myself very much. Recovering people often say, I just don't like myself. When will I start liking myself? The answer is, start now.
What's up, please?
Just having a hard time today. I went to court yesterday. I took the plea bargain, which was cap on no more than 4 years, no less than 6 months.
Do you mind sharing with us what happened? Because there's people in here who probably don't know your story. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I started using drugs about 10 years ago. And I started out with a good job, and I thought I wasn't like everybody else. So I went to treatment for my job the first time around. Then after that, I lost my job, and I started shoplifting to support my habit. That escalated, you know, got worse and worse and worse, and I kept doing it. Finally, now it's caught up with me. I'm clean. I had 7 months yesterday.
All right.
But you know how they say, you always have the skeletons that haunt you. So that's what I'm going through.
What's changed about your life from 6 months ago, 8 months ago?
More serious, you know, more, the main thing to me is my kids. I don't know, it's just more seriousness. You know, tired of playing games, this in and out of drug rehab type of thing, you know, 'cause I've been here, done this before. I don't know, it's just different. I used to never talk. I was molested when I came up as a child, okay? So I never talked. I never said anything. I was always alone. I kept that secret for 18 years till I came to treatment here. And Wanda, thank God for Wanda. She was a counselor here. She helped me to bloom. So it's just I'm going through a lot of things.
I respect you for dealing with this, for facing it, because you could have turned away, you could have hid, you could have ran, you know, there's countless of things you could have done, you know, just to not face it.
I thought about it.
I know you did. I know you did. Okay, I feel you. I know you did. You know, I admire you and respect you because you didn't, and that shows me right there that you mean that your recovery. You mean what you feel and what you say about your recovery. You know, because if you didn't, you would have went one of them other ways. You'd have took that easy way out.
I know how angry I would get facing what she's facing. But it seems like once you learn how to deal with your anger and deal with the problems, some type of peace just comes in there and you learn how to deal with it. You don't get bent out of shape. Even though consequences may come, you still have that peace that you don't, you know, you don't be tripping like you used to. And, you know, I found, and you can see it on her face. You can see it.
You can.
Of course she's not delighted about the fact that she's going to go and be in jail, but she also said, this is the consequences for my behavior. Recovery is about consequences. It's not about getting off the hook for it. It's about saying, these are the not okay things I did. I want to clean those things up so that I can get on with my life.
Getting on with Don's life involved leaving his job as vice president of a large pharmaceutical company and starting over.
Hey, Don. Hey, morning, Jonathan. How's it going? Pretty good.
During the 3 years since Don entered Ridgeview, he spent plenty of time sipping coffee in this coffee shop.
Again, try 'em on.
One day, he decided to buy the shop. Today, he owns the largest specialty roasting factory in the southeastern United States.
So recovery gives you gifts, and one of them is not to fear change. And if you change from substance abuse to non-substance abuse, then dropping a career and starting something new is no big deal. Sometimes I pray and wish that I wasn't in recovery and that I could be a normal person again. But you can't. I'd love to tell you, Bill, that I'm going to get better from this disease, and like the measles, and I'm going to be immune. I'm not. I have a daily reprieve. You asked me what I do in a daily routine. The last thing I'll do when I go to bed tonight is go, thank you, God. Take a bad day at work. It's been a shitty day. Everything went wrong. But tonight, I'm sober, and I'm grateful for that. Thanks. And then tomorrow, I'll do it again. My wife used to tell me that I had a titanium shield, and I never showed any emotions. I don't think she'd ever seen me cry, really. Ridgeview taught me that it's okay to cry if something upsets you, but equally, it's okay to show love. When I finally went home, my wife thought that she'd got herself a Stepford husband, whatever they did to me in there. Luckily, no such film has been made, and I told her it is me, actually. It's the real me that you may have not seen for years. And she said, keep it.
What is the change you're after here? Is it change of heart, change of habit, change of mind?
All those. What they first notice is that, gee, this is funny. The world looks different. My wife, she seems different. My job used to drive me crazy, and it's not so bad. And so they come in to see me, and they say, the weirdest thing happened to me. I got out of treatment, and I went back, and everything changed. And I say, well, you know, sure, that happened to you. The entire world orchestrated itself around you so that you could stay sober. And they laugh, and they say, oh, I see. I'm the one that changed. That's what makes working in this field so great, is that people, they become something they always wanted to be, and they feel as if their lives have meaning. It's like someone rewrote the script, and all of a sudden, they gave them a part they could really play. Instead of saying, well, you need to play this part all your life, someone rewrote the script and said, well, that's not the script. Let's rewrite it being something that is written for your soul rather than someone else's soul. And that person says, I can play this script. And this script doesn't include drinking.
As I go on this course of recovery, you know, I realize that it's not really about drugs anymore. That has nothing to do with it. That's just what I did to relieve the pain. I feel like before I got sober, I was trying to be so many things, but I just didn't have a clue, you know? And as my soul becomes in alignment or starts to piece together, I see the patterns in my life and why I chose what I did. And if you figure the amount of years it takes to get to this place, the recovery period, the period of reconstruction is going to be long, but then there's just the life to live that you stopped living when you were using. You know, it's almost like you get your second childhood when you get sober.
Oftentimes people have forgotten themselves who they were. Or perhaps they were only that person as a child. Oftentimes addiction for a person is a long, long journey away from themselves. So recovery is a journey back to themselves.
We watched our own son rediscover himself. During his addiction, his personality had changed. Now, in recovery, the changes were no less dramatic. We began to understand them only when we came with him to the Hazelton Family Program. Here we learned how families can work together in the process of change.
I wanted you to give me a prescription to fix my family member's addiction, and you didn't do it.
No. Time and time again, we know and we learn and we tell others, you can't change somebody else.
That was the hardest thing to learn, that I could not change this person.
That's right. No matter how well-intentioned a person is, how intelligent, how informed a person is, no matter what, you cannot change somebody else. And that is probably one of the hardest things about the disease, and one of the things that is the most frustrating to the family.
What is the impact of addiction on families as you've seen it?
My favorite still is the metaphor of we have an elephant living in the middle of the living room here at the house, and no one talks about it.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's walking on eggshells, everybody's hypersensitive to the most significant issue in this family, and nobody will even put a word on it until we're very late into that process.
And that becomes the family secret.
Becomes the family, dominates the family.
You can't ignore it. Everybody changes behavior because of
Absolutely. Part of recovery is a reconstruction of identity and a reconstruction of the social world. Families, I think, got to go through that same thing. Families and the individual alcoholic need to be able to say, who was I before, and who were we as a family before this thing happened to us, and this thing called alcoholism? What happened to us as a result of that? We need some words and labels to put on that individually and collectively. And where are we now, and what are our roles here now that we've got a member of our family in something called treatment? And how do we go forward here? I mean, how do we go back and restructure and put this thing back together? And I think families need some help to make sense out of that and move forward.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming today and helping us celebrate and honor the courageous steps that these women have taken to change the direction of their lives and the direction of their families' lives. You and your family and the people here who have supported you know the tremendous courage it took on your part to make the changes that you have made to date and the changes yet to come.
In this Project Safe graduating class were many of the women we met when we first came here, but some were missing. Lisa began serving her prison sentence 10 days earlier. Felicia was also missing. After repeated attempts to keep her in treatment, she dropped out of Project Safe.
If we have 10 women who started, we may have 3 of those women in graduation, so there's a lot of casualties that go on. Now, some of those women that didn't make it are going to be coming back in, and they're going to be in a future graduation. What our experience is the greater the number of the times that they come back, the greater the opportunity. The odds of recovery happening increase each time that they're trying.
Like I always tell you, you know, you have to keep going on. You have to make your meetings, you know, because you know I'm going to be out there. I love every last one of y'all. Y'all touch, every time I go through a graduation, each one of y'all leave a piece inside of me. Thank you. Thank you.
So what does your research tell you is a good measure of success? How should the public think of treatment as successful?
What people really want out of treatment is not just reduced alcohol and drug use. They want improved social function. They want an end to the crime that's associated with alcohol and drugs. They want an end to the family disruption and the embarrassment and the violence associated with it. They want an end to the high insurance costs caused by excess utilization. They want all of those things. Now, is substance abuse treatment able to deliver on that? Answer is yes.
Hi, I'm Tanya. See, y'all ain't gonna make me cry. Y'all ain't gonna do that. I'm nervous. I need somebody. We're right here. We're right here with you. Okay. Cool. I'd like to thank Rosecrans for giving me a chance to come back.
Things are looking up a lot better for me. You know, I take better care of my children than I did before. You know, I feel a lot more confident about myself now. I have a lot more self-esteem. I just feel a lot better about everything, and the graduation was great. It was really nice. I tried not to cry, but I had to.
This woman in AA said to me, "You're going to meet a woman, And this woman is going to be everything you ever wanted to be. She's going to look like you want to look and sound like you want to sound and feel like you want to feel, and she's going to have her life headed in the direction you want yours to go. Well, that woman is you. And as long as you never pick up another drink. And I think about that with these women, even if they haven't clearly defined who that future them is, they have inside of them an idea of who it is they want to be. And every day without alcohol and drugs, they take another step towards becoming her.
Just like to say I'm proud of all of you for graduating. Especially my mother. Yeah.
Don't sit down yet, you got one more. I'm proud of you. You look so beautiful today. And all you do. Congratulations, everybody. You did a good job. Thank you. I love you, Mom. I love you, too.
It's pretty dramatic. And we tell clients, this is a real simple program that we're going to bring you into. And what we forget to tell them is it's a simple program. All you have to do is change everything about your life, because it is. I mean, but it's the kind of thing no one could face that much change. And yet, looking backwards, that's precisely what happens to people. Is there's almost nothing short of transforming most aspects of their life in this recovery process.
Want to know more? Check out your source close to home, www.pbs.org, for in-depth info, resources, and a multimedia comic book for teens. Join us on the web. Next on Close to Home. 1 in 5 American kids lives with an addicted parent.
He knows what drugs can do. He's seen it firsthand.
Can the cycle of addiction be broken?
You can't do anything for the kids unless you can fix these parents.
The next generation could use a helping hand.
We talk and you realize, wow, there's somebody else like me, you know?
Before it's too late.
The whole reason that I went to rehab was because people were worried about me.
Kids Who Need Us on the next Close to Home. Funding for this series is provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, making grants to improve the health and health care of all Americans. And by Mutual of America, building America's future through pension and retirement plans, encouraging dialogue and discussion. The spirit of America, Mutual of America. This series, Close to Home, is available on home video cassette for $119 plus shipping and handling. To order, call 1-800-336-1917 or write to the address on your screen.
This is PBS.
If addiction has come close to your home and you would like more information, call 1-800-729-6686. You can get information about substance abuse issues or find treatment options in your community.